Madam Speaker, honorable members of the Oecs Assembly, and of course, persons in the gallery, I rise in my capacity as Minister of Environment for St. Kitts and Nevis, as well as the Chairman of the Oecs Council of Ministers for Environmental Sustainability, to not only respond to the motion that has been tabled in this honorable House by my colleague from Antigua and Barbuda, but also to lend my overwhelming support to what has been proposed in the motion. I believe that it captures the common aspirations of Oecs member states in the quest towards a more sustainable future. The motion, which I consider very timely, has at its core the theme, the shift, embracing new platforms and innovative models for leadership in sustainability. Madam Speaker, as we forge ahead in these trying times of a contracted global economy in 2022, as a direct impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, we acknowledge the challenging dynamism and uncertainty that every day brings. Notwithstanding, restoring ecological balance in the Caribbean region plays a valuable role in reducing risk and enhancing resilience against natural disasters in the region. We can no longer live our lives ignoring the devastating consequences of poor environmental management. The motion before us today reinforces our collective resolve and commitment as a region to the cause of sustainability. We are further reminded that all Oecs member states have adopted the revised St. George's Declaration of Principles for Environmental Sustainability, SGD 2040, and the commitments contained therein via the Council of Ministers for Environmental Sustainability. In addition, to ensure that this articulated policy position is efficiently translated into meaningful, concrete action on the ground, the ministers also endorsed the Oecs Biodiversity and Ecosystems Management Framework. The theme of biodiversity and ecosystem has been duly identified in the motion as a priority area at the regional level in support of national interventions, which is in conformity with and reinforces the need for effective and coordinated action in areas such as ecosystem restoration, access and benefit sharing, climate resilience, invasive alien species management, and mainstreaming biodiversity into national development to include ecosystem valuations and assessment. Madam Speaker, the motion before us emphasizes and prioritizes biodiversity conservation and ecosystems management, which is vital to the economic viability and the survival of the people of the Oecs. Against this backdrop, the motion strongly advocates that the integrity of such natural systems must be rehabilitated, restored, or maintained where necessary for the benefit of our future generations. The motion, Madam Speaker, is in harmony with and supports existing national, regional, and international environmental efforts geared towards biodiversity conservation, such as country national biodiversity strategies and action plans, as well as the draft Global Biodiversity Framework that is currently being negotiated by parties, including the Oecs, member states at the UN Biodiversity Conference taking place in Geneva. The motion further encourages implementation of the SGD 2040 by providing the necessary policy guidance for a strategic, coordinated, and transformational approach to the management of biodiversity and ecosystems in the Oecs to achieve healthy and resilient ecosystems that provides goods and services to support socio-economic development and livelihoods for the people of the Oecs. Madam Speaker, adoption of this motion would demonstrate that the Oecs governments not only recognize that human and ecosystem vulnerability are interdependent and that safeguarding biodiversity and ecosystems is fundamental to climate resilient development, but it also signals the commitment required to pursue a more sustainable and ecologically viable future. Madam Speaker, achieving a sustainable development agenda requires coherent coordination of policies. The 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement, and the many other multinational agreements we have signed on to, as well as development partners, have made the case for environmental sustainability as a core pillar for transforming our collective future. We are mindful of the conclusions in recently approved Working Group 2, contribution to the 6th assessment report that highlights impacts, adaptation, and vulnerability. It reminds us that time is of the essence, and that the window to secure a livable and sustainable future for all is rapidly closing. Adaptation is urgently needed, but it will not be enough without limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Madam Speaker, unprecedented times is a common expression used to describe our state, and rightfully so it is. Add the looming threats associated with the triple planetary crisis, and it begins to feel insurmountable. We then question our collective survival as we feel the grave effects of climate change, biodiversity, and the nature crisis, and the pollution and waste crisis. As we focus our attention on promoting a more sustainable and resilient economy, it is important for us to consider the circular economy. There are a vast range of benefits to the environment, including reduced dependence on importation of raw materials, avoidance of environmental damage caused by resource extraction, and less pollution entering the Earth's life support systems. Moving towards a more circular economy could deliver benefits such as reducing pressure on the environment, stimulating innovation, and boosting economic growth. Madam Speaker, as we juggle all the important elements that make up a resilient economic framework, it is equally important for us as a region to foster and encourage a sustainable energy framework. All of us as Oecs member states are dependent on imported fossil fuels, which have negative impacts or implications for our environmental and socioeconomic development. Let us use the current oil situation as a fuel to not just foster but fast-track low-carbon economies, improving lives to support poverty alleviation and self-sufficiency. Furthermore, this will allow us to stay true to the commitments we have all made when we ratified the Paris Agreement. Colleagues, the truth is that we need to continue identifying and implementing adaptation and mitigation measures in a holistic and a collective manner. We need to ensure that we make use of the most effective tools and methods that will help us to integrate climate change considerations into our planning and investment processes. I reiterate once more the call for coherence of coordinated systems. The rapid scaling up of a climate finance is needed. Enhanced mobilization and access to financial resources are essential. At the end of COP26, which was held in Glasgow, Scotland, there was general consensus that there was an urgent need to accelerate climate action. But we also recognize from the IPCC Working Group 2 that lack of climate finance is a key constraint to adaptation. Further, from the commitments given by almost 200 countries regarding increased ambition and subsequent action, the 1.5 degrees Celsius goal remains in sight. However, it will only be possible with very concerted efforts and immediate global action. And that means us in the Oecs region as well. Colleagues, almost all countries represented at the conference made a commitment to revisit and to strengthen their emission targets to 2030, commonly called the nationally determined contributions NDCs, during the course of 2022. During a 2-year period, 154 parties submitted new national targets, representing 80% of global emissions. Madam Speaker, the need for stronger political will worldwide was also highlighted during COP26, and the need for governments to do more and to commit more funding for climate action. It was also decided at the Climate Finance Conference that a leaders' summit will be convened in 2023 to discuss the Global Progress Report. Madam Speaker, that political will is essential right here in the Oecs region. We cannot be asking larger emitters and developed countries to change their course of action when we here in the Oecs lack the political will that will bring about meaningful change. The issue of loss and damage has been of major concern for small island developing states, including St. Kitts Nevis and all of us in the Oecs, which have suffered tremendously from natural disasters directly attributable to climate change. COP decisions have recognized loss and damage. However, at every opportunity presented to us, we must remind the developed world that future climate impacts and loss and damage will rapidly escalate above 1.5 degrees Celsius. For every 1/10 of a degree the world warms beyond 1.5, the more severe will be the economic and non-economic loss and damage. Therefore, a significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions is absolutely necessary. Madam Speaker, as we grapple with the negative impacts of climate change and the need for all of us, individually and collectively, to do more to mitigate these impacts, we must, and I say must, seek to fully engage our young people. And it is very heartening to see so many young people here today in the Assembly. We must be able to find ways to tap the creative talents of our young people to stem the tide of climate change. This must be an all-hands-on-deck approach, as we are all part of a very vulnerable region, and we are all at risk. Madam Speaker, as I listened to my colleague from Grenada, she said that when your neighbor's house is on fire, that you should wet yours. But, Madam Speaker, with the effects of climate change and what we are seeing in our region and around the globe, there may be a time, because of climate change, when your house is on fire and you want to wet yours, but there may be no water. And that is the stark reality of the situation that we face in today's world. As I also listened to my colleague from St. Lucia, he said that it takes 20 minutes to decimate one of our OECS countries. I would add that it may take 15 minutes to decimate all of us in the OECS. And so in closing, Madam Speaker, I wish to reiterate the Federation's commitment, St. Kitts and Nevis' commitment, to environmental stewardship and partnership across the OECS region. It is only through our collective actions, strategically using our limited resources and taking innovative risk, will we be able to successfully overcome the environmental challenges we face and will continue to face in the region. We absolutely must, as a region, hold hands and commit to fighting climate change together. And in doing so, seek to embrace new platforms and innovative models for leadership in sustainability. May it please you, Madam Speaker.